throughout the history of the UFC, they've had hundreds of champions, maybe not hundreds, but over 100 at least. And these select few champions, for whatever reason, a lot of them for the same reason, are forgotten. Why don't the fans remember these guys? And you're going to see a pattern in a lot of these champions and why they're forgotten. And because people forget, man. So let's get right into it. The first forgotten champion we got is Leon Edwards. Listen, Leon Edwards was just a champion like 10 minutes ago. But let's be real, guys. The reason that Leon Edwards is forgotten is because the guy's just boring. His personality is boring. His fight style is boring. And he's inactive. He doesn't fight very often. And it's like his biggest claim to fame was headshot dead. Look at me now. Headshot dead. Outside of that, he hasn't really, personality-wise, done anything. I mean, the guy went on a 12-fight unbeaten streak to win the UFC belt, and then he got dunked on his head by Belal, and to me, that was embarrassing. And yeah, man, Leon Edwards, I think he's a victim of his own personality. Like, he just doesn't promote himself whatsoever. And if you look at his fights, look at his activity. 2 fights in 2017, 2 fights in 2018, 2 fights in 2019, 0 fights in 2020. 2 in 2021, 1 in 2022, 2 in 2023, and 1 this year. So it's like Leon Edwards doesn't fight. He's never, since his UFC career started, he's never fought 3 times in 1 year, and his activity's just never been anything great. So, of course, this guy was always going to be a forgettable UFC champion. I mean, he was fighting on average like once every 10 months. And yeah, man, the fans forget people quite fast, especially guys like Leon Edwards. If you don't have a great personality and you're not fighting often, you're going to be left in the dust, man. And Leon Edwards, unfortunately, has fallen to that category of a forgotten champion. His head kick against Kamaru will always be legendary, but people will not remember Leon Edwards as one of the welterweight greats. Let's be real, guys. Let's move on to the next one. We got Belal Muhammad. Now, this is a funny one because Belal Muhammad is the current UFC welterweight champion, but nobody seems to know that. Not even the security at UFC 310, because this guy was trying to get into the octagon to face off with Shavkat Rakhmonov after he defeated Ian Gary, and the security was blocking Belal because they didn't even know who he was. How ironic is it that this guy's nickname is remembered the name Belal Muhammad? Now listen, Belal Muhammad, whenever he's all said and done, he will be forgotten so fast. I'm not trying to be a hater, guys. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to shout out some hate on Belal, but overall, this guy is so like non-memorable. Like nothing he do grabs attention. Nothing he does grabs attention. He's not entertaining. His personality sucks. And the reason I put his professional record on the screen with his wins, guys, look at Belal's wins. He has 24 wins, 18 wins by decision. We're talking about a guy who's not the most active, right? He never finishes fights, and he has no personality. Of course, this guy's going to be forgotten. This dude can't even be remembered while he's the champion. Nobody knows who Belal Muhammad is. And the only people that know him are his fake fan base. They're like, dude, the real ones know, man. Belal Muhammad smokes Shavkat Rakhmonov, dude. It's like, no, he doesn't, dude. Belal's cooked. He's just not entertaining, dude. He's 36 years old. He looks like a freaking virgin. All right, I'm just hating now. But seriously, Belal Muhammad finished somebody, as Ilya Taporia said, man or woman. We want to see it, my guy. 24 wins, 18 decisions. He has like 1 finish in like the last 10 years, which is a crazy stat. He's had over 4 hours in the UFC octagon, has never knocked anyone down. So if you guys want to know why Belal is a forgotten champion despite being the active welterweight champion, that will tell you right there. Let's move on to the next one. We got Jamal Hill. Now, I mean, I'd be surprised if some of the newer fans didn't even know that Jamal Hill was a champion. This guy's been going around coping so hard about his loss to Alex Pereira that people don't even know that Jamal Hill was a champion. He became the champion but at the beginning of 2023 by beating Glover Teixeira by unanimous decision. Now, granted, this was a 42-year-old Glover Teixeira coming off a war with Yuri Prohaska, so it wasn't the same prime Glover Teixeira, but he did get a respectable, dominant performance over Glover. But outside of that, man, he hasn't really done much. His best win outside of the Glover win is Thiago Santos, and he struggled in that fight. And then Johnny Walker, like, dude, he lost to Paul Craig. Fair enough. Magomed Ankalaev did too. But it's like Jamal Hill, when it's all said and done and the record books are written, this guy will not be remembered as a light heavyweight champion. He will be remembered as the guy who coped about his Alex Pereira loss. And whenever he pressed Alex Pereira in the gym and said, we're not on Twitter anymore, Alex Pereira told him to put on the gloves, and Jamal Hill was like, no, I don't fight for free. How cowardly is that, my guy? So listen, Jamal Hill, is deservingly a forgotten champion. People aren't going to remember this guy as a champion. I almost forget, like sitting in my room sometimes recording these videos, I'm like, oh wait, Jamal Hill was a champion. Because I'm just seeing this guy go on cope sessions on Twitter, on his YouTube channel. Like his entire UFC career is turned into a cope about losing to Alex Pereira. And I would not be surprised if he lost to Yuri just because he's not focused on the fight. But yeah, man, Jamal Hill, the whole Alex Pereira Jamal Hill saga is hilarious. This guy got KO'd and he just can't let it go. There's literally whole compilations of Jamal Hill coping about losing. So he will 100%. I think he's already a forgotten champion, but if not, in the next like 2 years, people will ever forget this guy was held a belt. Let's move on to the next one. Raquel Pennington. Now, I think the blame for Raquel Pennington not being a forgotten champion, even despite being a champion recently, if you look at her win streak up to the belt, it was actually decent. Bunch of decisions. It is WMMA, one finish. But if you look at her go up to the belt, it was actually decent. You know, she had a 6 fight win streak, and then she drops the belt to Juliana Pena recently at UFC 308, 309. Either way, the reason that Raquel Pennington is a forgotten champion is, one, she's already been sunned by Amanda Nunes. So Nunes holds an entire shadow over the division. So anybody that becomes champ in this division for like the next like 3 or 4 years, since Nunes retired, nobody's going to take him serious because people are going to be like, dude, Nunes is the GOAT. Nobody cares about these other fighters. And Raquel Pennington's boring. Like, she puts me to sleep, and her fights are bathroom breaks for me, I'll be honest. And she fought for the belt against Mara Bueno Silva. Like, dude, that's what we're doing, dude. Like, I know she was just a champion less than a year ago, but it's like, dude, we already forgot, dude. I don't even remember Raquel Pennington being a champion. It's just the same girl that got destroyed by Amanda and quit on the stool. Either way, respect to Raquel Pennington for getting the belt in the latter half of her career. But people aren't going to remember her, man. People forget, man, and they will forget, and they're going to move on and say Amanda Nunes is the GOAT, and that's it. Let's move on to the next one. We got Henry Double Cringe Cejudo. Now, whenever I say Henry Cejudo is a forgotten champion, I don't necessarily mean his championship status in the UFC is forgotten as a whole. I mean his flyweight portion. People forget that Henry Cejudo won a robbery split decision against Demetrius Johnson, which I scored for Demetrius Johnson 3 rounds to 2. I thought that DJ clearly won that fight, but judges favored it for Henry. And what a coincidence, they traded Demetrius to one championship right after. Who knows? Either way, the reason that Henry Cejudo is a forgotten champion is because the second that he won his belt against Demetrius Johnson, he got one more win at flyweight, and then he moved up to bantamweight, fought 2 more times, and he retired. And then he came back and lost 2 fights. So the fact of the matter is, Henry Cejudo's flyweight career is long far in the mirror. People don't even talk about it anymore. All we talk about is Triple C, C4, Olympic champ, flyweight champ, bantamweight champ. But like, dude, it's a gimmick, dude. I wouldn't be surprised if some casual didn't even know who Henry Cejudo is. I mean, he's like 5'3". I'm surprised you can even see him on the screen. Either way, I'm throwing some shots these fighters' way because it's fun. Why not throw some shade? Henry Cejudo, one of the most fraudulent UFC careers. I'm going to make a video on that soon, but yeah, man. Henry Cejudo's forgotten because we all know that he got smoked by DJ in the first fight. All right, anyways, let's move on to the next one. We got Fabricio Werdum. People forget, man. Yeah, people forget that Werdum actually was the guy to take the belt off of Cain Velasquez, and by submission. He submitted Fedor and Cain Velasquez, and he KO'd Mark Hunt. This guy has a lot of insane wins. I'll never forget 2015 Mexico City. Against Cain Velasquez, he puts Cain Velasquez in the guillotine and chokes him out, wins the belt. And I was actually happy for Fabricio Werdum because this guy was one of the most underrated and best heavyweights, probably the best heavyweight grappler we've ever seen in the UFC. Best heavyweight jiu-jitsu specialist, I'd say. Maybe him or Gelton Almeida. But Fabricio Werdum winning the belt, I don't actually have anything bad to say on why he's forgotten. I think he's just forgotten because he only got the belt and he lost it right away to Stipe. So he literally had the belt for 11 months. He took a lot of time off after he fought Cain, 11 months off. Came back, got KO'd by Stipe. And then from there, his UFC career was up and down. A win versus Travis Brown, a loss versus Overeem. 2 wins, a loss, and then a win. So it's like he won the belt. His UFC career was up and down. But, man, there's no doubt that Fabricio Werdum was one of the most exciting UFC champions. But a lot of people don't even know he was UFC champion. A lot of people see this guy, who's this guy in PFL? Fabricio Werdum. Who's this random fighting in game bred bare knuckle? It's like, dude, this is the freaking former world champ that freaking destroyed Cain Velasquez in the freaking 3rd round, dude. That's who. Either way, let's move on. Respect to Fabricio Werdum. Let's move on to the next one. we got Luke Rockhold. People forget, man. Luke Rockhold beat Chris Weidman for the belt in 2015, dude, and it became one of the most inactive fighters we've ever seen, fighting once in 2016, once in 2017, once in 2018, once in 2019, no times in 2020 or 2021, and then once in 2022. This guy was so inactive, and we all know why Luke Rockhold's forgotten. It's because of his loss to Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping's left hand took Luke Rockhold's soul, and he went 1-3. After losing to Michael Bisping, this guy was never the same. He got chinned by Yoel Romero, chinned by Michael Bisping, chinned by Jan Blachowicz, chinned against Mike Perry and bare knuckle. So it's like the reason people forget that Luke Rockhold was indeed a UFC champion is because this guy got chinned so many times that he became Mr. Chinny Chin Chin. And although I kind of felt bad for Luke Rockhold at moments in his career, he was so cringe on the mic. And I think Luke Rockhold's going to be remembered for more for his meme status and like his cringe-worthiness than him ever being a UFC champion. A lot of newer fans definitely don't know this guy was champion despite seeing him around in the MMA scene still. He's 40 years old now, so he probably should hang up any combat sports he decides to do in the future, if he decides to do it. Let's move on to the next one. We got Tyron Woodley. Catch that fade by Tyron Woodley, the best rapper in UFC history. Just kidding. Now, Tyron Woodley is a forgotten champion because he's kind of a victim of GSP and Kamaru Usman's success because he was sandwiched in between those two title reigns. You had GSP who went on a long reign, and then he retired, and then it was a couple other guys, and then Tyron Woodley got the belt, and then Tyron Woodley got completely dominated by Kamaru Usman, and then Kamaru Usman went on a legendary run and had one of the most exciting title reigns we've ever seen. So people forget, man, that Tyron Woodley was actually a solid UFC champion with 4 title defenses, winning the belt off of Robbie Lawler, defending it against Stephen Thompson twice. And yes, a draw does count as a title defense because you retained your title. Defending it against Stephen Thompson twice, once against Damian Maia, and then destroyed Darren Till. But the reason that people are going to forget Tyron Woodley, 2 reasons. One, like I said, the success of GSP and the success of Kamaru Usman. But also, this guy lost how many rounds in a row? 16 rounds in a row at the end of his UFC career. He lost all 15 rounds versus Kamaru, Gilbert, and Colby. And then he got submitted in the first round by Vicente Luque. And then he went into 2 boxing matches with Jake Paul. And he lost the first one by decision and got destroyed in the second one, completely knocked out cold. So people are going to remember Tyron Woodley not for being a UFC champion, but they're going to be remembered as the guy who got knocked out by the Disney star Jake Paul in boxing. So respect to Tyron Woodley. He wasn't underappreciated champion, but he will be forgotten, or he is kind of already forgotten. Let's move on to the next one. Nico Montano. Now, some people are going to be looking at this and like, who the heck is this? If you know, you know. The hardcores know Nico Montano actually won the inaugural flyweight championship by, guys, wait for it, drum roll, by beating Roxanne Modafferi. Literally one of the worst UFC fighters ever. Listen, respect to Roxanne Modafferi. She's a nice girl, but man, was she a terrible fighter. And Nico Montano won the belt off of her, and then she went ducking and dodging and flipping and surfing away from Valentina Shevchenko, didn't want to fight her, had injury after injury, and then made excuses. And eventually, she was ducking and dodging so much that they actually stripped the belt from her and moved on with the division with Valentina going on her insane run. So, yeah, man. Nico Montano might be the most forgotten UFC champion in history just because, like, dude, first of all, it's women's flyweight. So unless you're Valentina or Alexa Grasso, most people don't remember you anyways. But it's Nico Montano who literally quit fighting after that. So yeah, nobody even knows she was champion. People who have been fans of the sport, like literally since the UFC's inception, probably have no idea who this is. So people forget, man. Nico Montano, the first flyweight champion in the UFC of the women's divisions. Let's move on. Cody No Love Garbrandt. Now, Cody Garbrandt got his soul taken by TJ Dillashaw after winning the belt. Listen, he had one of the most legendary performances against Dominic Cruz way back in 2016. So, I mean, that's 8 years ago at this point. Cody Garbrandt winning against Dominic Cruz. He was doing the Irish shuffle on him, fucking dancing around the octagon, just styling on Dominic Cruz. Won that fight, and people were like, man, Cody Garbrandt, 25 years old, world champion. This guy's the future. And what happens? He gets KO'd in 3 fights back-to-back by TJ Dillashaw, and then by Pedro Munoz, gets a win against the Sun Sal. Then he comes back to get destroyed by Rob Font in a dominant decision. Then he gets KO'd by Kai France. Comes back, gets 2 more wins, and then he gets submitted by Davison Figueiredo. So Cody Garbrandt went from 11-0 to 14-6. That's 4-6 since he won the title. And yeah, man, people are going to remember Cody Garbrandt not because he was a UFC champion, but because he got a freaking sword tattoo over his eye that looks ridiculous. And that tattoo, if you haven't seen it, guys, go have a look. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. But People in 20 years, people aren't going to say, dude, you remember that UFC bantamweight champion Cody Garbrandt? They're going to say, no, do you remember that meathead with the tattoos on his neck and his face? That's what they're going to say. So respect to Cody Garbrandt to becoming the champion at such a young age at 25, but people forget, man, and he will be forgotten. Let's move on to the next one, the most forgotten champions, Johnny Big Rig Hendricks. Now, Johnny Hendricks, his whole career is overshadowed by the fact that he arguably and pretty much definitively beat GSP for the title, but the judges didn't rule in his favor. He was 15-1 coming into the GSP fight and just looking unstoppable. And then two things hit Johnny Hendricks. The loss to GSP hit him, right? And then USADA hit him. Because after USADA, Johnny Hendricks fell off a mountain. I mean, this guy went from winning the UFC belt against Robbie Lawler for the vacant belt. He then lost it in the rematch against Robbie Lawler. And after losing that rematch in Robbie Lawler, he went 2-5. He just was never the same guy, man. USADA came in. Johnny Hendricks couldn't use IVs, couldn't take the big old juicy roids he was taking, whatever he was taking. And yeah, man, Big Rig, respect to him. He did become the champion, and I am happy he became the champion after getting robbed by GSP. It was nice to see my homeboy, Johnny Big Rig, literally Big Rig Hendricks, get the belt, but he will not be remembered as a champion. He will be remembered as the guy who got robbed by Georges St. Pierre and then went on a downward turn after that. Let's move on to the next one. We got Eddie Alvarez. All right, Eddie Alvarez, which is funny, guys. Eddie Alvarez comes into the UFC, right? He kind of fluked his way into a title shot. He lost to Donald Cerrone, right? And then he gets 2 split decisions against Gilbert Melendez and Anthony Pettis. And then he goes into the fight with RDA, who actually passed out backstage, I believe, before the fight. Not backstage. He passed out during his weight cut. RDA was not great for this fight. He was super, not himself. And he gets a KO over RDA in the first round. Fair enough. But that's pretty much all Eddie Alvarez is known for. No, actually, Eddie Alvarez is known for giving Conor McGregor one of the most legendary performances. Conor McGregor absolutely styled on Eddie Alvarez in this fight. Led to one of the most beautiful 4-punch combinations you'll ever see. And Eddie Alvarez will be remembered as the guy who was Conor McGregor's highlight reel of the UFC. After that, he went on to fight Dustin Poirier twice, 1 to a no contest, and then 1 to a TKO loss. And he KO'd Justin Gaethje, fair enough. Eddie Alvarez is a forgotten UFC champion. Most people don't even know he was champion. Most people know him for his wife yelling in his fights, Eddie, come on, Eddie. She has no idea, which is actually funny if you know. But Eddie Alvarez, definitely a forgotten UFC champ, mostly because his getting up to the title was kind of a fluke, a double split decision, and then fighting a weight-depleted RDA. Fair enough. Not trying to discredit him, but dude, facts are facts, man. Listen, let's move on to the next one. Renan Barao. One of the most forgotten UFC champions, and man, did this guy maybe had the worst fall off in MMA history. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was on a 32-fight win streak, never heard of before. Who goes on a 32-fight win streak? Going into the fight with TJ Dillashaw, this guy was 34-1, I believe, on a 32-fight win streak. Unstoppable, destroyed everybody, despite his best win being Uriah Faber, but he was destroying everybody. And yeah, man, he came into the fight against TJ Dillashaw, a massive favorite. Because why wouldn't he be? He's on a 32-fight win streak. And yeah, he was actually the bantamweight champ after Dominic Cruz was stripped of the belt for inactivity. Renan Barao, who was the interim champion, got promoted to undisputed champion, and then he ended up, I think, beating Uriah Faber and then losing to TJ Dillashaw. And after losing to TJ Dillashaw, he would go on to go 2-8. 2-8 after losing to TJ Dillashaw. So from a 32-fight win streak to 2-8 is quite crazy after winning the belt, after losing the belt. And it's like, what happened, man? Most people hear about Renan Barao. Only the hardcores know that he went on a 32-fight win streak. Only the hardcores know that he was promoted to undisputed champion after Dominic Cruz didn't come back in time. So I think Renan Barao is going to be a forgotten UFC champion because most people are going to look at his downfall and be like, man, that guy sucks. They're not going to look at his ups of his career. So yeah, guys, in my opinion, these are some of the most forgotten UFC champions for one reason or another. I kind of tried to outline the reason why they were forgotten. A lot of them, it was huge downfalls, or it was just ducking and dodging, or in guys' cases like Leon Edwards and Belal Muhammad just being extremely boring, inactive. Not so much Belal, but Leon Edwards extremely inactive, fighting on average once every 14 months. So it's like, listen, man, Leon Edwards, if you're going to be boring and crap the bed every time you fight, at least freaking fight 4 times a year, dude, so we can forget about it, Either way, I guess that's kind of... Either way, guys, thank you for watching. Like the video if you like the video, of course. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I appreciate all the comments, subscribers, likes, and everything, guys. I'm going to be still doing the daily stream, so if you guys enjoy the streams, come hop in there. And that's it, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'm bouncing out of here. Peace.